This week on Secrets of Engraving, we visit with Wade Wilson, Frank Brownell, and Yves Halliburton.
This is Wade Wilson here at the FEGA show in Las Vegas. Tell me about yourself. How'd you get started engraving, Wade?
Well, Ron Smith and I had a customer in common, and I told that customer that I wanted to learn to engrave, and lo and behold, I showed up from work one day with Ron's book in my mailbox.
Wow.
And it went from there. So, of course, the best advice Ron gave me was just go take a class at GRS. So, went from there.
There's a big screen of some of your work. That looks really good. Clean scrolls, good backgrounds. I love the hat logo. Did you engrave that as well?
No, sir. Clip art.
Clip art. Well, that works too. I love these cobras. They're sculpted out there. Flip the side. Let me see the other side of that. What was your inspiration for these cobras?
Well, the customer wanted a gun that was completely covered in scales, and I thought we could do better. And he didn't want floral, and so I had to come up with something. And necessity is the mother of invention. So there you have it.
Well, it looks like you did an excellent job on that. That looks great. This pen looks really nice too.
I should be taking a picture.
Do you cut more guns or knives, or what's your primary canvas these days?
I cut knives to relax, and I cut guns for money.
Well, are you doing this full time? Or?
Yes, sir.
That's great. And where are you out of?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth. Okay, so you're right there in Ron's hometown.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been doing it, Wade?
1 year full time, and then about 3 years overall.
And how old are you?
41.
41. Okay.
It's a good question.
It's a great profession. Getting a lot of clients, and a lot of your area, you're in a great area for guns, I'm sure, with Texas. Oh, there's a nice little bower. I used to cut a bunch of those back in the day.
Somehow I've managed to cut 2 of them so far.
Anything you would like people to know, how would they get in touch with you?
WadeOliverWilson.com, or look for me on Instagram.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Next up, I'm going to be talking with Frank Brownell, who is the longtime patriarch of the Brownell's gunsmithing tool trade, which many of you are familiar with the catalogs, and it's where I bought my first set of engraving tools back in 1981. And he's been a big supporter of the engraving arts over as long a time as I've been born. And he's going to tell us a little bit about James Be Meek, who wrote the book, The Art of Engraving, that many of us American engravers got started with, and telling us some things that we didn't know in the second book that Bruce, as he was known to his friends, was working on. And here's a little picture on the back, that self-portrait that he did of himself. And here's Frank talking about him.
Dad, dearest friend, and my mom and dad would go over regularly. They lived in Newton, about 40 minutes away. He was actually, he cut the screens for doing silk screening. And the company he was with, I'll lean back, the company he was with did a lot of work for Maytag. And he could freehand cut a 7-layer screen for 7 colors. And that would all stack up, and then you do one, and then you do the other, and then and he would just freehand it. He was that talented. So then he got into engraving, and I don't even know how. I suppose he just decided if he could do that, he could do engraving. And his workshop was absolutely immaculate. And all the cabinets were painted the same, and all the machine tables were painted the same, and the machines were all covered with custom covers, and it was gorgeous. He was in his basement, and his wife was a nurse, so she'd go to work, and he would engrave in the evenings. And then he finally retired from the other job, and then just did it full time and wrote the book. The book was amazing, and Bruce, God love him, did everything in the most obtuse, obscure way you could possibly say it.
Wow.
There will be, when one considers one might like to do some engraving on a piece of metal, one should first decide what kind of piece of metal he wanted to do it on. Then when one had made that decision, one would then need to decide how to do the pattern that he wanted to do. And that all cleans up down to when you start engraving.
So grab a piece of metal and start.
Yeah. His tools were just gorgeous. They were so nice and so sharp, and he could do anything he wanted to make. He could make it. So he might spend a week making a fixture to hold a particular piece that he wanted to do something.
Speaking of creating fixtures to hold things, our next interview is with Yves Halliburton, who worked as an engineer in the aerospace industry for many years before taking up engraving a bit more seriously. And Yves kind of has a little history with the book I just showed you. This particular copy was given to me by a dear friend of mine who took the very first engraving class I took in 1982 in Trinidad, Colorado, Charles Yankowskis. And Yank, as we called him, was also a mentor and good friend to Yves in Savannah, Georgia. Yank was 72 when I first met him as an 18-year-old, just graduated from high school at our first engraving class out in Colorado. Yves and I didn't meet until well after Yank had passed on and made the connection that we both knew the same wonderful gentleman. But anyway, here's my interview with Yves. And who's this gentleman standing here with this wonderful table full of beautiful guns? What's your name, sir?
My name is Yves Halliburton. I'm out of Savannah, Georgia, and I've been engraving now for roughly about 8 to 10 years. I got into engraving because I was a cowboy action shooter and wanted to have engraved guns, and saw some of the ones that were engraved at the time, and I felt I could do better. So I was just plinking around with a hammer and chisel and saw a ad for GRS training, and told my wife I wanted to sign up and spend my vacation doing this for once. And so I went off and took the class, and Sam Alfano was my initial teacher for the basic engraving class, and after about the third day I got hooked and bought the equipment and have been engraving since. And I have taken several classes with 2 with Sam, and one with the Western Bright Cut engraving, and one with Bolino. And here I am today. The majority of stuff that I do engrave is going to be Colt 1911, single actions, Winchester rifles, and Model 12 shotguns. Seems to be my forte of what I like to work on. My initial goal is to essentially, when I retire from my normal job that some of us have, I plan on essentially like restoring older Winchesters and Colts and engraving them and then selling those. Not so much doing commission work if I do get that, but that would be my fun. I love the restoration aspect of old guns and doing that. So that's my goal probably in about 5 years when I retire.
And so you sure in Savannah, do you do much with the folks at Far City Gun Club?
Yeah, Far City Gun Club is a haven of Model 12 shotguns.
Is there still a lot of Model 12 usage there?
There's still a lot of guys out there that have an enormous amount of collections of Model 12s and shoot them for all sorts of things, mostly for trap, some ski, but mostly for trap and stuff like that. And they have a couple of high-end betting games that they do, and they use Model 12s for that. So I get a lot of guys that want their Model 12s engraved, and probably the majority of it is going to be that traditional 12-5 pattern, which they love, which is 4 ducks on one side, the 2 dogs, and the Flushing quail or whatever. And so I do quite a bit of those. Some with gold birds and ducks and stuff, and some with just Bolino. So I do that. I do some stock work out there still, some checkering work and stuff, but for the most part I'm doing the metal part now.
And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they?
Well, they can email me at savgunworks@yahoo.com, or they can go to my website, www.gunengraver.us. And there's a link on there for an email address as well, and you can contact me that way. And I'm an FFL dealer, so I have an FFL license, so you can ship guns directly to me, and for engraving or work, and then ship directly back to you.
If somebody wanted to get started in this art form, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say initially, if you're interested in it, take a basic engraving class with any of the instructors that are out there these days. GRS has it, Ray Cooper has it. There's several engravers you can find out. You can go to several of the online forums, which is the Engraver Cafe, Steve Lindsay's forum, the FEGA website, and they'll have different people who are teaching. And take a class and see if you like it before you go out and buy equipment and stuff like that. Now, most people don't do the traditional hammer and chisel anymore. They're using the pneumatic tools, which would be from GRS or Steve Lindsay, and it cuts the learning curve down a lot, but it is a lot more expensive than the hammer and traditional chisel buying that, but it'll get you into the scope of whether or not you really enjoy it or not, and go from there.
Tell me about some of these tools that you've got here that you put out.
A couple of tools. I come from a manufacturing engineering background. Is my education that I've had. So I'm always looking for tooling to make things better, faster, quicker. A couple of these things here are the GRS knobs, whereas typically you had the big T handle. So I had a little knob and put the Allen wrench in there, so it fits in the vise and allows you to keep the knob on the vise, so you can spin it and move it what you need it to. But it's long enough to where you can put a wrench on it or reel or bear down on it. So it's just a little thing to make things a little easier on you. The smaller little knobs you see there are for both the quick change on the GRS tool, which allows you, instead of using the regular right angle Allen wrench, it's just a little bit nicer, a little bit more, I guess, user friendly. To put down, easy to find instead of looking for an Allen wrench. And the other one is just for the Lindsay handpiece. It has a different size Allen wrench, but they both do the same function.
Well, alrighty, thank you, Yves. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just engraving's been an enjoyable thing, especially with the people and stuff. I found that engravers share their information a lot. They're not secretive about their techniques and stuff, and they like to spread how they do so. So it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it a lot, and it's a great. I find it is a great profession from a standpoint from where I come from. I was a woodworker, and unless you have an air conditioning big warehouse, woodworking is difficult in the South with the humidity and everything. So I got into this, and it's been a great therapy from stress. Because you sit at a bench, you can sit in the dark. I sit with my light on over my microscope, and I can just cut and engrave and tool and draw and stuff. And it's huge therapeutic of getting away from the rat race of life in general, working, kids, everything. So it's been a great thing, and I can't wait to continue what I'm doing when I retire full time.
Very good.
So retirement is going to be a change in lifestyle, not so much a change in quitting and retiring and sitting in a chair. It's just going to be a complete change in lifestyle of what I do. 50 years in aviation, moving into something different.
All right, thank you much, Yves.
You're welcome.